Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm M and welcome to the Spectral Drift. So today I have something pretty fun, is that Shovel Knight fell into the Crypt, and to be honest, I am very hyped for this. So what you're seeing now is basically a replay of my journey through the Crypt as Shovel Knight with him, and I'm gonna be honest, this has been what I've been waiting for a while now. This feels like it should have happened a long while ago, but it feels like a perfect match made in heaven, because it worked so smoothly in. So just to get started, let's go over the tracks, because they're the most important parts when everything is to the rhythm. So basically, everything is linked up to one of the tracks of the Knights of the Order of No Quarter, and a little bit of extra thrown in there. Seems like the NercoDancer is a big fan of all the Knights of Chivalry, so let's get right into it. Each track fits in perfectly and the beats are amazingly timed, so there's nothing really to worry about when everything is off beat because everything is still on beat and perfect, just like the NercoDancer means it to be. And the tracks are randomly intermixed with each other. It's not going from like the strongest knight to the weakest knight. It's just kind of random throughout the NercoDancer's Crypt, but that's not a bad thing because it actually keeps the rhythm of the NercoDancer's Crypt. And now getting into Shovel Knight himself, he actually brings in his iconic shovel drop, which can also combo and make holes in the ground that if you're not careful, you'll fall straight into the next floor, which can be both a curse and a blessing. Though be careful with the shovel drop ability, because even though you're invincible on someone's head, if you miss a beat you do take damage, so it kind of is a trade-off of if you can hit the beat you're practically invincible, but if you can't then you're about to take a ton of damage. Something else that is really impressive is that Shovel Knight can use every single armor set, and if Amplified is there, you can actually see him wear every single armor set, and he even has his own styles to him. He also utilizes different types of shovels. So for instance, if you have a shovel that does +1 dig, it doesn't only just add to the dig strat, it actually does a bit more damage because he uses the shovel drop as his weapon. Thus he can't use any normal ordinary weapon, he has to use a shovel as a weapon. So it kinda gives shovels a dual purpose. And I think this is a great way to give shovels way more of a variety to them, a bigger use, because in a normal run of the NercoDancer's Crypt, they're pretty useful, but as long as you get one that has like +1 dig, you don't really need anything else. But when it comes to Shovel Knight, they become the main weapon, because you don't get daggers, nor do you get clubs or anything like that, not even a mace to be seen. You only get your shovel, and to be honest, it provides so much fun scenarios to go through. And when it comes to Shovel Knight's favorite move, the shovel drop, it actually only hits when you bounce off of the thing's head, and not when you are on them, meaning that you have to time and manage where you're going to land. Because if you land in the wrong place at the wrong time, well, you're about to get smacked in the face and take a lot of damage. Though as long as you're aware of your surroundings and know relatively where you're gonna hit, then it shouldn't really be that much of a problem. And I think one of the coolest thing about Shovel being into the Crypt is that you can see all the funny little trinkets. I mean, they all have their own effect, especially in Amplified, where you can actually see every piece of equipment that you've acquired absolutely just decorate. Because they all look fantastic and they all work fantastically with this kit, so it's just an added benefit. To be honest, I didn't think it would have this much detail when I first entered into the Crypt with Shovel, but I was pleasantly surprised when I got into it and I found out that absolutely everything has its own aesthetic purpose. Because as you can see here, even the helmets can go on top of the original helmet and have a bit of an aesthetic wardrobe change. And also with the necklaces and amulets, they also show up and they have a good look to them. It is just amazing to see the little details, because I'm a person that likes the little details when it comes to just little things happening around. But don't get me wrong, all the big stuff also is pretty impressive as well. Mainly the abilities of the shovel drop. As I said before, it can, destroy a line of enemies, and it gets more powerful with each enemy you jump on. But if you jump onto a wall, you can actually do a little bit of a streak. You can bounce off of one wall to another, quickly traversing the crypt and using it as a bit of a speedrun tactic. It can also serve many other purposes, like being able to open a crate if bounced off a couple times for the exact amount of damage you need to open up one of those things without using a bomb. So it's actually advantageous to try to plan out your moves to get the highest amount of value out of your shovel drop. Another fun thing that happens with Shovel is he can move diagonally, unlike Cadence and a lot of the other people traversing the crypt. He actually has full mobility, so he can go basically wherever he wants and create his own pattern, which becomes very useful because the shovel drop really doesn't align with straightforward patterns. It usually happens when it's on diagonal. It makes it a lot easier, but as you saw there, with a bit of extra oomph to the shovel drop, I can platform and plummet directly into a boss fight. Luckily, I defeated the mini-boss right at that time, so I didn't have to deal with the consequences of hitting a area early. And when it comes to boss fights like King Konga, it actually becomes a lot easier to defeat them because their whole thing is a ton of enemies at once, but when I'm invincible on top of an enemy, it just becomes a bit of a wash, a bit of a cakewalk, if you will. And as expected, the Crown of Thorns is the only way to really get the amount of vampirism that the other people can have in the crypt with blood weapons. So this paired with the shovel drop is actually pretty decently well, because unlike all the other crypt dwellers where they have to just strike at one enemy, Shovel can ping pong off of about 10 or 20 of them at a time, getting more powerful with each hit, and also just kind of amplifying his own abilities and healing himself in the process if you get the Crown of Thorns. And as you see here, each different armor set has its own aesthetic changes when it comes to the crypt, like the crystal armor making him aesthetically pastel and giving him a well-deserved makeover. Though, as you see, the extra damage still doesn't pierce through an armadillo shell. You have to have a piercing item for that. So, even though the shovel drop is really nice, there are some, drawbacks to it, which is that piercing has to be acquired through a ring or through any other item. The shovels are limited because there's no new shovels that come with Shovel. He is only limited to the shovels that pre-exist with inside of the crypt itself, but the items are everywhere and they can kind of cover up those drawbacks. So even though that weapons are a huge part of the crypt, it's not really a drawback, and it's actually really fun with that limitation because it allows you to rely more on items than on very powerful weapons, using the unconventional weapons such as the shovel, which Shovel Knight is very much known for, using his mastery of an unconventional weapon to really dominate the crypt, making you feel like you've really mastered this weird little weapon. Something I am really impressed with about Shovel Knight being within the crypt is the aesthetics of it all. The music fits really just about perfectly in there, and so does the look. It fits Shovel Knight so perfectly. He's used to having a wardrobe change every now and then, but this is really expanding his options when it comes to jewelry and other accessories alongside that. Even new helmets, which is a really fun change of pace. And also just all the variety of armors he can have, and all the varieties of different little items like necklaces, amulets, garlands, all that fun stuff he can wear, just like how he's wearing the Crown of Thorns right now. It's really nice. Also, another fun little tidbit is that he can also use a pickaxe as a shovel as well. doing even more damage than a normal shovel would. It acts just about the same way, and it's the only non-shovel weapon that he can possess, which I think is just a really funny turn of events. Other than that, though, I feel like his weapons and armaments is a really good challenge for when he got dropped into the Crypt, and I think it is a really fun addition to the livelihood of the Crypt and all the funky beats that are beat down, all the way into the Crypt. Shovel Knight takes a lot more skill than the others that dive deep in the Crypt of the NercoDancer to find riches beyond their wildest dreams, only to get sucked into the unrelenting vibe of dance. So Shovel Knight really does have that addition to him that really makes him special within the Crypt. He's very different from everyone else, and I think that's just what makes it way more fun to have him in here. His movement is probably one of the biggest ups for Shovel Knight. He can just kind of maneuver anywhere he wants to, using both enemies and the walls as his port of transport, absolutely blasting through levels of the Crypt. And with each level and with each new area of the Crypt, Shovel Knight can go and delve even deeper, faster than most, if not any, dwellers of the Crypt. And obviously, delving further into the Crypt, it gets a lot harder to keep up pace, which also means it's a lot harder to shovel drop people without taking damage. So, it gets to be a lot more difficult to actually take people out. So, just trying to find something else to really maneuver around and try to find protection in the Crypt for these upcoming challenges within becomes even higher of a priority. Another thing that Shovel Knight does have an advantage is he has an extra loot spot. So if you're lucky enough or just skilled enough to line up an enemy to one of these digable spots, you can get some pretty decent loot. And when I say pretty decent loot, it's probably some of the best stuff that you can find. It is like a crate, but with a little more oomph to it. This is also affected by the Ring of Luck, so you can get even more broken things from within the depths of the dungeon. And it would help you a lot on your journey if you would like to focus them, and I would highly recommend it, so would Shovel Knight as well, is that these should be your highest priority. And when it comes to the movement of the enemies compared to Shovel Knight's movement, it's actually pretty simple, since Shovel Knight can move on a diagonal unlike most of the dwellers of the Crypt, with some exceptions, one being, funnily enough, Hatsune Miku. He actually does have a wide variety of movement, and it is really useful to see what happens. It's also probably the best to look for something to protect yourself within the Crypt. Being the best armor you can possibly get is probably, or should be, your highest priority, because you're going to get hit a lot on levels 3 and 4, and 5 especially, because when you're off of the electricity, you don't actually gain the effects because you're above everyone. So just a little tip going into it. I think the best strategy going into it with shovel in hand is actually to try your hardest to get through the floors as fast as possible and skip most of the challenges if you dare, because it's probably just a lot easier to avoid things, because the longer you stay in a level, the more likely you are to get hit by just about any inhabitant dwelling within the dancing tomb. And when it comes to bosses, Shovel Knight absolutely dominates most of them. Them being more the crowd fights, since he can just kind of jump over everyone, and they're set to certain beats unlike levels that they possess, or they inhabit. It's actually just a ton easier to kind of glaze through them and burn straight through them. Though more enemies doesn't mean it's an easier time getting around, because especially in the 4th level, some enemies are just a lot more powerful. one being the fencer that can parry attacks, it actually negates some of shovel jumping to make it a lot harder. So you do definitely have to plan it, and those guys threw me off most of the time, but as long as you treat them like you would in any other run, they're actually quite simple. And also the guys that shrink you, just have some boots prepared to protect yourself, and you should be easy breezy lemon squeezes. And just make sure to break every chest and box that you can find, because those crates are probably gonna be the way that you get through this perilous journey of the cave. And also try to at least find some companions, because they will help you out a lot, especially ones that can heal you or at least protect you from a different side. Though if you do find the pigeon one, be very careful where you place it, because you want to string together a lot of attacks, because when you are attacking things, you're gonna build a meteor that does even more damage, and you want to keep that streak going for as long as possible. So as long as you're not teleporting everything away every time you hit them or come into contact, it will be a lot more useful. Also bombs, make sure you stockpile every bomb that you see and every bomb upgrade that you come across, because they will be a major help later on. And I could not recommend this enough. If you do find the potion, hold that on for dear life, because you are going to need that. And being even more reckless is probably your best chance at survival. And the debuff for dropping into a room without killing a mini-boss is actually not that bad, because mini-bosses aren't the main threat here, it's everything else. So if you're really trying to really get that win with Shovel Knight, then you're gonna have to help him get through the floors as fast as possible and get ready and get buckled in, because it's about to be a wild ride. But the easiest part of this shovelry journey is most likely the bosses. As long as you have the handle on them, you shouldn't have that much of a problem. It's really the floors that are the main issue with all of them. So as long as you know what you're doing, you should be a-okay. And getting the flawless victories definitely do help. They keep the same beat as always. Some have remixes, which are a welcome change. I think every boss actually has a remix. So if you're down for some more Crypt of the NercoDancer shenanigans, then I would definitely recommend at least trying these remixes, because they definitely do add a bit of spice to life, you know? So, going through the final level of level 5, where everything is amplified, though I get no benefit from it. You know, trying to go through it, this is kind of the final phase. Sometimes I miss the bottle of potions, but I now kind of know what I'm doing, just trying to get to the end of it. Popping down. Final, it's Fortissimo. We all know, we all love him. Actually, I kind of despise him a little bit. I think he's one of the more annoying bosses in the Crypt. But getting straight into it, this is just the final boss. You can rack up a lot of kills for blood weapons with this, or just kind of the crown, because they're all stacked up, so it's free healing. So, going into this is just kind of the ending to my first victory with my good friend Shovel Knight, and getting straight into it, that's about it. So if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.